Good morning, students. In today's class, I am going to continue the second topic, biological classification. In the last class, we have discussed up to the class Ascomycetes. So, in today's class, we are going to continue with the third class Basidomycetes. Class Basidomycetes is also called the club fungi, or other common names of members of this class are, they are also called the bracket fungi or puffballs. So these are the common name of members of this group. The second character of this class is, the members of this group are usually found on the soil, on wooden logs, and also on the tree stump, and also as a parasites. They found on soil, on wooden logs, or on tree stumps, and also parasites on plants. Example, Ustilago and also Hymenium. These are parasitic fungi. The next character of this group is, the mycelium of this group is branched and septate. They have branched mycelium. Branched and septate. Mycelium is branched, septate. The fourth property of this group is, no asexual spores are found. Asexual spores are found. But vegetative reproduction takes place by fragmentation. But vegetative phase or process takes place by fragmentation. Sex organs are not present, but plasmogamy takes place by the fusion of two somatic hyphae or somatic cells that leads to the Dicarotic phase, which ultimately gives rise to the Basidium. And inside the Basidium, karyogamy and meiosis takes place and produce the basidiospores. And basidiospores are produced exogenously. So now I am going to explain this whole process with the help of diagram, so you can understand very easily. These are the two spores. The one is positive and the other is negative strain. These are called the basidiospores. When these basidiospores germinate, these tubes are called the hypha or primary mycelium. They are septate and with single nucleus in each compartment. When these hypha come in contact with each other, when they come in contact with each other, the cross wall or middle wall degenerate, and cytoplasm of these two hyphal cells fuse. Cytoplasm of these two cells fuse. That process is called the plasmogamy. The fusion of protoplasm of these two cells is called the plasmogamy. And now this is called the dikaryotic phase, because a single cell has two nuclei with two different strain or different charges. And this starts growing into branched hypha. In each compartment there are two nuclei or dikaryotic stage. In somewhere in the middle they produce a outgrowth. They produce a button-like structure or outgrowth. And in each this compartment two nuclei, and this is called the secondary mycelium, and these two are called the primary mycelia with the single nucleus in each compartment. But secondary mycelium is the one which has formed by the fusion of two primary mycelia, and in each compartment of secondary mycelium there are two nuclei, or each cell we may say the dikaryotic cell. And this button-like structure develops into the a fruiting body. The fruiting body structure is somewhat like this. A stalk-like structure. And an umbrella-like structure. So this stalk-like structure is called the stipe, and umbrella-like structure is called the pileus. And there is one structure on which the pileus is attached, that is called the annulus. And this whole structure is called the fruiting body. This is called the fruiting body. So inside this pileus there are some structures, plate-like structures. They are called the gill plates. They are called the gill plates. And inside the gill plate we may find structure like this. Internally there are some sterile hyphae with dikaryotic nuclei at the center. And this sterile dikaryotic cell structures, this region is called the trunk. This is called the trunk. On the outer surface of both sides, on both sides, there is one more layer which is also with two nuclei. This layer is called the subhymenium. This is called the subhymenium. From the subhymenium, some balloon-like structures are emerging out. Some balloon-like structures are coming out. And they are called the basidium with two nuclei. Each basidium has two nuclei, and this zone is called the hymenium. Hymenium. When we enlarge and observe the single basidium, this is the single basidium with two nuclei of two different charge, one plus charge and minus charge. When these two nuclei fuse, a diploid nucleus is forming, which we call the karyogamy. So here the karyogamy takes place by the fusion of these two nuclei, and soon after the karyogamy, meiosis takes place in this basidium only, and meiosis results 4 haploid nuclei. Among them, 2 are plus charge, 2 are minus charge. and this basidium produce outgrowths, and the nuclei which are formed, they migrate in these outgrowths, and now they are called as basidiospores. They are called the basidiospores. When these basidiospores detach by the help of a water droplet, they fall on the ground and starts producing again vegetative mycelium. So in this form, the life cycle of the agaricus takes place, or we may say the formation of basidiospores. The basidium present structure is called the fruiting body, or we may also call this structure is called the basidiocarp. Basidiocarp is the fruiting body in which basidia are produced. The example for this group or class Basidomycetes, examples, one is agaricus, which is also called the mushroom. Another example is Ustilago, also called the smut, because its spores are black, powdery, which is a parasite. And another one is Puck-I, which is also called the rust, which is also a parasite on the wheat and cause the wheat rust disease, and their spores are reddish brown in color. So here we finish the class characters of Basidomycetes, and let us move to the characters of next class, class Deutromycetes. Characters of next class, class Deutromycetes. Deutromycetes are also called the Fungi imperfecti. They also call the Fungi imperfecti because they have only asexual reproduction. Sexual reproduction is completely absent. Only asexual reproduction. No sexual reproduction. That's why they are called the Fungi imperfecti. So fungi are classified basically into two groups. The one group is the one which has sexual reproduction. Another group which has only asexual reproduction. So there are fungi which have only asexual reproduction, all are coming under this group class Deutromycetes. Suppose in future any Deutromycetes shows sexual reproduction, it would have moved to the another classes like Ascomycetes or Basidomycetes. And these members also have the mycelium, which is branched and septate. Mycelium is branched and septate. Asexual spores are conidia. Conidia are asexual spores and which produce exogenously. And members of class Deutromycetes are saprophytic, parasitic, or decomposers. Most of them are decomposers on litter, and in this way they help in mineral cycling. Mineral cycle. Example for this group Alternaria, Coletotrichum, and Trichoderma. So these are the examples of this group class Deutromycetes. Now let us move to the next part. We may compare all these classes. So it's very easy to understand us to know the detailed features of all the classes at once. So we may compare all the classes together. Comparison between classes of fungi. There are 4 classes: Phycomycetes, Ascomycetes, Basidomycetes, and last one is Deutromycetes. First of all, we will start with their common names. As we know, Phycomycetes are commonly called as algal fungi. They are called the algal fungi. Whereas Ascomycetes are called the sac fungi. Ascomycetes are called the sac fungi. And Basidomycetes are called the club fungi. Or sometimes bracket fungi or puffballs. These are also common name of Basidomycetes. Deutromycetes are called the fungi imperfecti. Fungi imperfecti. So these are the common names of each class. So next about mycelium. In Phycomycetes, mycelium is a septate. A septate cenocytic. Cenocytic mycelium. In Ascomycetes, Basidomycetes and Deutromycetes, mycelium is branched and septate. Mycelium is branched and septate. So let us talk about the asexual spores. In Phycomycetes, asexual spores are zoospores and aplanospores. In Ascomycetes, Conidia. In Basidomycetes, asexual spores are absent. But in Deutromycetes, one more time, Conidia are the asexual spores. And their origin, zoospores are endogenous. Conidia are exogenous. And here also Conidia are exogenous. The last character is sexual spores. Here the sexual spores are zygospores. Here ascospores. Here basidiospores. No sexual spores in the Deutromycetes. When we talk about the origin, they are endogenous. Endogenous. But Basidomycetes are exogenous. An example for each group mucor, albigo. Example. Rhizopus is also example for this group. Example for Ascomycetes, yeast, penicillium, even Aspergillus, Neurospora, Claviceps are also come under this Ascomycetes. An example for Basidomycetes, Agaricus, Ustilago and Puc-I. And an example for Deutromycetes, Alternaria, Coletotrichum and Trichoderma. So these are the comparison between each class. So here I am going to conclude this whole class, all the classes as well as Kingdom Fungi discussion. So in the next class we will continue with the Kingdom Plantae. Thank you.